We're now going to look at Unit 6, Lesson 3 overview. Because this is the first lesson that we're looking at within Unit 6, we're going to look at our big picture, our UBD, our simplified scale, and the scope and sequence. So we'll start off with our big picture. If you'll notice, Unit 6, Graphing on a Coordinate Plane, is found in the second 9 weeks. Students have just finished up rational numbers and had their introduction to negative numbers for the first time. Scroll down here, we'll find Unit 6 starts at the end of week 4 with the ant and the sugar. The lesson that we're going to focus on specifically today in training is Sketch My Graph, and if you'll notice, this takes 2 days of instructional time. Looking at the UBD for Unit 6, you see that we have our Alabama course of study, the new Alabama course of study, listed underneath the goals. Underneath the meaning, we have our students understanding, what they will understand when they conclude this unit, essential questions that you can ask throughout the unit, and then our acquisition has your students' knowledge, what they will know when they've completed this unit, and what skills they will be able to do once they've completed this unit. Looking at our cover page or our simplified scale, you'll see here at the top that this is Unit 6, Graphing on the Coordinate Plane. There's 8 days of instruction plus assessment time for a total of 9 days. Underneath that, you have your vocabulary that they will be visiting during Unit 6. Followed by your concept checklist. Remember, you have your 4s, those are the ones that can teach someone else. Your 3s, those are the ones that can do it on their own, your proficient students. So you want all of your students to self-assess at least a 3. Then you have your 2s, I can do it with some hints. Those are the students that still need a little bit of assistance. And then you have your 1s. Those are the students that just aren't there yet. If we look here, we find Sketch My Graph on days 5 and 6. You see the courses of study in which it covers. And then you see your kid-friendly I can statements. Plot points in all 4 quadrants. Plot ordered pairs that are reflections across the axis. And plot ordered pairs that have fractional coordinates. Those are what the students should be able to do by the end of the lesson, Sketch My Graph. Now we're going to look at the unit note, and this is found on Lesson 1's scope and sequence. So this is found at the beginning of the scope and sequences, and then we'll move on specifically to Lesson 3. Here we've got Unit 6, Graphing on the Coordinate Plane, 8 days of instruction plus assessment time for a total of 9 days. Here is your unit note. I'll read this for you since it's shorter. It says, in this unit, students will use the coordinate plane to help solve real-world problems. Students use number lines to model negative numbers, prove the distance between opposites, and understand the meaning of absolute value. When students use the prior concepts listed in the last sentence, they should easily transfer to the creation and usage of 4-quadrant coordinate grids. The students will plot in all 4 quadrants of the coordinate grid. The students will understand the differences between the numbers can be found by counting the distance between the numbers on the grid. Now let's look specifically at Lesson 3, Scope and Sequence. You can see here, this 3 in parentheses here tells us that that's Lesson 3. This is a NIMSY lesson, Sketch My Graph, and it's 2 days of instructional time. There again, you see your courses of study and your teacher note. Now remember, the difference between the teacher note and the unit note is the teacher note is specific for this lesson. The unit note is specific for the entire unit. You've got your prerequisites. Again, if you see that there's some struggle with these prerequisites, those are the things you can bring in your exit slips or your bell ringers. And then we have materials needed. And on this one, we also have some additional support resources that are available if your students are needing that. Then we have our presentation strategy. We're going to focus specifically on day 1. Before beginning, explain to students the procedure for sketching the graph based on verbal directions. Read the instructions to students for question 1, allowing students sufficient time to plot each point and connect to the previous. Show the answer grid and discuss discrepancies in their chart. Then read directions from question 2 to students and allow sufficient time to plot each ordered pair and connect. Show the correct graph and discuss the work. The next step is to have students work independently to create their own set of directions, following guidelines as to what to include and graph in their instructions. We'll cover that part in the middle part of day 2, and then when we come back for our final Zoom meeting, we will actually cover day 2's procedures, where students will get with a partner and take turns reading the directions for their graph. Once the student completes the graph, they compare with the reader and discuss any problems seen. Students switch roles and complete their partner's graph by following the verbal instructions.